The last talk before we go to the panel discussion is Dr. Mark Hilburger, the Principal Technologist for Structures, Materials, and Nanotechnology. He's going to be talking about excavation, construction, and outfitting. And talking of construction, he builds and drives and races cars.
Okay, thanks, Ben. I still have my race cars. I don't race them right now. I race my kids back and forth to their sporting events. Yeah, let me first start out by thanking everybody for being here. This truly is an exciting time for me. I really enjoy my job right now. And I've been really impressed with the speakers both yesterday and today. It's great to have great speakers before you because they've really set the stage and said a lot of great things that feed into this story about infrastructure. I know that my title says PT for Structures, Materials, and Nanotechnology. Well, about a year and a half ago, they added construction to that list of things. And really, I've spent probably 95% of my time learning about construction. And I've had people like Jerry Sanders and others, experts from around NASA and even within industry to help me get up to speed on it. But it's really an exciting area, and I'm really enjoying it. I thought I'd start out a little bit different. I had a 3.5-hour drive up this morning from my house on our fantastic highway infrastructure. That won't be the first time I use the word infrastructure. And I said, well, you know, we're going to be putting these slides out for review, and I know Walt's probably getting a little antsy. He's like, what's Mark doing? He's going off script. I did. I had a script. I was like, nah, I'm not going to use it. I was thinking about, now that I've been thrust into this new area for me, I start thinking about, okay, I'm looking around for construction sites and what's going on there so I can learn, you know, what are the operations and the equipment that's needed and the various types of infrastructure that support different things on our earth, you know. And so for me, I'm a very visual learner. And I was like, oh, well, you know, terrestrial infrastructure, that's the first place that you're going to want to go, right? You're going to want to leverage industry's experience. And for me, I just jump-started it by, you know, looking at every construction site. As you're stuck in traffic, I mean, there's nothing else really to look at, because that's usually what's there. So I came up with a story as I was driving up this morning. It's called Terrestrial Infrastructure, Mark's Experience for the Last 24 Hours. True story. So yesterday, on the way to my daughter's softball game, if you're familiar with the Tidewater area where I live, there's, you know, Newport News and Norfolk, and you're immediately confronted when you go over the bridges, you'll see a coal depot supported by rail cars coming from West Virginia, bringing coal to the ocean to be shipped off, right? Huge infrastructure associated with that. Before that, it just looked like an eyesore of piles of coal. You go across the river, there's a huge shipping port with all these box cars that have gotten there from trucks that have, you know, gone down the highways, dropped them off, and now they're being loaded up onto ships. Huge amount of infrastructure. You start thinking about, wow, look at all this specialized equipment. You know, people had to put these ports together. You got all these rules associated with coming in and out of ports and, you know, inspection of goods and all this stuff. So that was infrastructure for yesterday. Oh no, well, you know, I wasn't here yesterday, so I had to dial in. So I was using our communication infrastructure. And then I went to bed. Woke up really early, got all my stuff together, got in the truck. I was like, darn it, I don't have enough gas to make it up here. So I had to go to the you know, fuel depot and fuel up my earth terrain vehicle, my truck, which is not cheap these days. And then drove up again on our really nice highway infrastructure. And one question came to my mind is, are we going to be charging tolls on the moon? Because I think I paid like $40 on the Easy Pass today, coming up here. That'll be on my dime. I'm not going to, you know, I just want to get up here quick and be here. So, yeah, so infrastructure. I think I hit on every possible piece of infrastructure that you could possibly have. I mean, I have air conditioning, took a shower and all that stuff, use my electricity. I'm already 4 minutes in, so I just wanted to say that for me, we've got that infrastructure all around us. I know you're probably thinking this is obvious, but when you really start thinking about it and all the complexities associated with designing that infrastructure, putting it in place and maintaining it, and how it all has to work together. It's a tremendous problem. It really is, but it's really fun to think about too. So John's talking about the power infrastructure, and we'll be supporting him, but we're also a big consumer of power, so we need you. You are king. That's okay. Julie and Jerry and ISRU, we have a similar relationship that we're excavating for them, providing them materials so they can provide us back with consumables and materials for building, right? So a lot of these intertwined memberships, it's a huge system that we have to work with, but I think we're doing a great job. And finally being able to see people in person is great too, because you can really start to iron out these details that are sometimes difficult to do. So let me get right to it. That was a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I figured I'd wing it. Which one do I do here? This one? No? This one? This one. Oh, point to the window? Oh. Okay. So, thanks. I can kind of see this down here. So here's our strategic framework, and as you've seen already, but excavation, construction, outfitting is under LIV, and off to the right side of you can see a lot of the real major intersections with the other capability areas that we have. Sometimes we're supporting them, sometimes they're supporting us, and sometimes it goes both ways. So obviously, we're a big provider of infrastructure, but also raw regolith for commodity production in ISRU. We rely on advanced power, but we can supply infrastructure to make power available and distribute it. We rely a lot on advanced materials and dust mitigation, because as Julie was saying, our systems have to last a long time operating in very hostile conditions. A lot of us like to think about these excavators and construction systems as sort of being the blue-collar robots. We've seen all the white-collar scientists roaming on Mars and all that. These are blue-collar. These guys are getting deep in the regolith, and we're expecting things to have to be built to support that, of course. Autonomous systems, robotics, big dependency there. We support assembly, mechanical systems, and then also we rely on manufacturing eventually to provide us with pieces, parts, and other things to support assembly and outfitting. So, okay. This is the envisioned future slide that we have, and so much like what you would see on Earth, we envision a future where you have power generation. You can see here multiple lunar solar arrays, vertical arrays, multiple landing pads, habitats, greenhouses, refineries, that sort of thing. So a lot of different infrastructural elements, and to develop this plan, I put together a team of NASA experts, all white space time, but they've done a tremendous job helping me out here. Broken it up into several areas that I'll go into in some amount of detail through the rest of this talk, but starting on the upper left, we've got excavation for ISRU. Talk a little bit about that in future slides. Then next, excavation for construction. That's associated with not only the site preparation of, like obstacle clearing, leveling, trenching, compacting, making good foundations for your structures, but also providing bulk regolith manipulation, where you could potentially build berms for landing blast containment, or providing overburden for radiation protection, that sort of thing. Then we get on to construction. There are several types of construction that I'll talk about in the slides. And then finally outfitting, which is sort of a not as mature area for us, but we've really been putting a lot of emphasis on it. And that is, how do you turn a physical structure into a working system? So it's like pulling cable, wiring harnesses, plumbing, your ecosystems, and that sort of thing. Throughout all this, we're thinking about how are we going to eventually move towards sustainable off-Earth living, and this is really is contingent on working with industry and developing a commercial capability where we can provide these services on the moon and later on to Mars. So, overall plan. it's very similar to what you've already heard, but, technology development roadmaps we are developing helps us sort of visualize the flow of our technology needs and requirements, helps us define sort of a logical buildup of our ECO capabilities, and Julie hit on it also as well, is taking into account, the scalability of these technologies. If we're starting out on small scale, making sure that there is a path towards a commercial scale. Technology investments that span the entire TRL range. Again, collaboration, definitely want to try and leverage as much as possible terrestrial experience in both construction and mining. And I couldn't be happier with the engagement that I've had with the APL working group and Athanu and Jibu and others. It's really been a tremendous asset as we've been developing these plans. They've been great about giving us honest reviews and that sort of thing. So next steps for us, we've got a lot of great stuff in the pipeline, continue to swim, as someone was saying, keep moving stuff forward, but start beginning to plan the next phases of developments, complete the roadmap definition plans, and there's a lot of coordination that is ongoing and still needs to happen across a variety of these capability areas that I've mentioned earlier. We have some modest pilot projects going on that we're using to address some of our top priorities, but we really do need to initiate some new projects in the coming years to help mature and close some of the technology gaps that we've identified. And with that, identifying opportunities to do both ground testing and lunar surface demos as necessary. So now I'll get into the part of the package where I go into more detail about each of the different capability areas, and I'll spend a little bit of time. Each capability area has 2 slides. I'll go a little bit more detail here about, so I'm on time here. Okay. This is Excavation for ISRU, and it starts out with capability description of the types of things that we want to see out of this capability. So, for example, autonomous resource excavation. And so we have quantities based on interactions with the ISRU community of how much regolith we need, how far of a distance we feel we'll be traveling from the mining site to a processing facility, things like recharging of our vehicles, lifespans, and reliability and repair. Definitely have to think about that and think about it early, right? How are we going to design these systems to be robust and also repairable, because they're going to break down. Again, they're working in very harsh environments, and we need to take into account how we're going to repair these things. Outcomes listed here, and then each capability, we've included a table that highlights some of the top key performance parameters for the capability area, what the state of the art is, and then some threshold and goals. Goals being, sort of our best ballpark estimate of what a commercial capability might look like. We're not necessarily going to ourselves, NASA, reach that goal, but help knock down the technology challenges to get industry towards that goal. So this slide covers current investments. We currently have a really excellent project called the ISRU Pilot Excavator, or IPE. You can see that in the central image in the right there. Actually, that's the Razor, which is a slightly larger scale version of what the IPE is going to look like. They're working on that to develop a system to excavate granular surface regolith, and not icy regolith, but this past Tuesday, we had a meeting where we were given the authority to proceed with a new Break the Ice challenge, where we'll be going after teams to design, build, and test excavators for icy regolith. So we're really excited about that opportunity. So I think our trajectory here is good. We definitely need some more work in the areas listed below, including autonomy, modularity, maintenance and repair, again, is a big deal to us, and others, as you can see there. So I'm not sure how I am on time. I guess my thought was, I'm 14 minutes in, so I'm good. I really want to tell that story. So excavation for construction, kind of similar technology challenges that you have with excavation for ISRU, but obviously a very different mission. Still worried about things like reliability and operating in the extreme environments. Here we're needing to focus on things like site surveys for geotechnical and topography characterization. Certainly want to make sure that we understand what the ground is like before we start building on it. And for any of you that live in lowlands, one of the first things that they do after they clear the land is they do core samples to make sure that your ground is solid. So that's an area that needs to be worked on. And then just a lot of the bulk regolith manipulation type of work. So all those big John Deere and Caterpillar type construction equipment. I must have seen every single one in the catalog today driving up here that can load, haul, dump, move, grade, level, compact. And they've got them at all different scales. You got a Bobcat sitting right next to a big Komatsu. So, you know, what scale do we need to be at? And those are some of the open questions that we still have. We may need to consider doing some ConOps and system studies as to what size of these vehicles do we really need. Do we use multiple vehicles, or do we use a single big one? So again, I've got the state of the art down below, and we have some specific target metrics there related to autonomy and the bulk regolith manipulation and that sort of thing. Current areas of investment, we recently awarded a luster. Really excited about this opportunity. A team will be designing, building, and testing a autonomous vehicle to basically take a predefined simulated lunar surface that we've designed in the rules. It includes rocks and craters and that sort of thing. And they've got to smooth it out. They've got to grade it, level it, compact it, and all that sort of thing. So really excited about that. Really good first step for us. But I think we're limited right now in our investment, and so I'm really looking forward to the STTRs. They're in the process of being reviewed. I've been told that we have some good stuff going on in there, and I'm also looking forward to the tipping point and ACOs that are coming out, because we have a call there as well. So when I was writing these slides, I was kind of concerned. I was like, wow, we got a big hole in this area, but I'm really happy to see the types of proposals that we have coming in. So we'll reassess and see what we need to do after this, but I think we're in this area going in a good direction as well. Let's see. So next, surface construction. We've found our plot of land. We've got it all ready to go. Now we want to build something on it. And so I stole this slide, and I have to put the person who came up with this classification. I can't remember the person's name. I didn't come up with this. I stole it because it's nice. So we break down construction into 3 different classes. Class 1 being like an ISS type of module. It's prefabricated on the earth, it's pre-outfitted, it's pre-tested, and once it's launched, it's ready for utilization. We move up to a class 2, and now we're talking about assembled or deployable type structures. And so a deployable would be like Bigelow's inflatable beam module that is attached to the ISS now. Other types of deployables, you could have hard structure deployables like many of the elements on the International Space Station, such as the solar arrays and that sort of thing. And then we get into assembled structures. We can do a lot of early construction, I think, with assembly. We have a long heritage of doing assembly, and so we're going to leverage that in our plans. Assembly could start out as earth-sourced pieces, parts to either develop a tall power tower for John, or we even have concepts for assembling blast containment shields and shelters as a class 2 construction. Starting with earth-based parts, but now we have an infusion path for ISRU produced elements, right? So that would be our first opportunity potentially to infuse ISRU-based construction materials. And then once that whole area of ISRU-based construction matures into a class 3 where you're potentially printing large structures, now you've got the full suite of construction capabilities. So again, following along the same format, I talked about the capabilities needed for class 2 and class 3 construction. Things that continuously come up with us are coming up with ways of doing in situ testing, inspection techniques, and certification, right? You're building your house, you have who knows how many different inspectors that come out and inspect all the way along as you're building your house. How are you going to do that in a lunar environment? You're going to do that autonomously. You're going to have an astronaut sitting there and making sure that you pulled your cables right. So figuring that out. Designing for structural enhancement or structural repair. And then actually designing the construction systems themselves, designing them for lunar survivability, reliability, and maintenance of those systems. I'm a little bit over time, but I'll speed it up here. We've got some really good investments right now in construction, both in the area of class 2 assembled structures, including precision assembled space structures. We're going to be leveraging that. That's really focused more on precision in space assembly, but in working with that team, there's definitely a lot of synergy with what we're trying to do on the lunar surface. We also have the Armadas project, and then class 3, I think many people are aware of the MPACT project. It's a tremendous project led out of Marshall. It's doing a lot of good work across a variety of technology or sub-technology areas associated with 3D printing with ISRU materials. And then we have some ACOs. What we really need here moving forward, architectural or ConOp studies. We're doing our best because we don't really fit into the architecture currently. Doing our best of trying to guess at what types of architectural elements and the sizes of those architectural elements are going to be. But we really think it's time for us to start doing some maybe some simulated ConOps and that sort of thing to help focus a little bit more what we're doing. Surface characterization, as I mentioned, building requirements and standards. Really need to start thinking about how we're going to do that. And then some of the other things that I've already mentioned. Finally, outfitting. Like I was saying earlier, the process by which structure is transformed into a usable system. And I've mentioned a lot of this already. I think it's kind of like assembly in that you're going to have to be attaching things here and there. How do you do that? When do you do that during the construction process? I think there's a whole industry out there. You just look at shipbuilding, for example, of how they outfit ships as they're building them. And so we can certainly learn from what industry is already doing there. We have very limited investments here. And I think as we start working through our road mapping exercises more, it'll become more clear what investments we need to make. Again, I think we'll benefit a lot from ConOps studies and some basic studies there. So let me get to some priorities. I have 2 slides left now. Sorry, I'm 3 minutes over here, but again, I'm really benefiting great, as I think everybody else is, with the LSIC and these working groups. Want to continue engaging them. I really thank you a lot for all the inputs you've given us. Continue moving forward with mid-TRL pilot projects for some of these known priorities. We've got some good things coming up and some good things going on, but I think there's some room for some additional investments there. And then pre-formulation studies to help us understand a little bit more about the architectures and having industry help us define building requirements and that sort of thing. Finally, top technology development priorities. I would say excavation for site preparation and ISRU-based commodities. I like the trajectory we're going on based on what I said earlier about some of the proposals that are coming in. So we'll have to see between now and over the next few months how we're doing there. ISRU-based materials and processes for lunar surface construction. This is a huge barrier right now for the folks that are working ISRU-based additive manufacturing for construction. They're finding it difficult, definitely, to transition to sort of environmental conditions. There's vacuum, temperature extremes, and that sort of thing that are becoming, that just pose real significant challenges to material processing and that sort of thing. And then finally, the large-scale Class 2 assembly, and then Class 3 additive manufacturing construction. So that does it for me. I appreciate you giving me some extra time.